Hey everybody, it's your friend Kevin, and this is your vibe of the day. All right, it's good to be here. I hope you are good and life is good with you and you're ready to start whatever you're ready to start. Let's get right to the message. Here we go. We have the Map Maker of Destiny from Colette Baron Reid's His Wisdom of the Hidden Realms. I was contemplating this morning earlier, as I do when I get ready to come on and do these. What do I want to talk about? And the word authenticity came to mind. Originality, authenticity, being yourself, expressing yourself, those kind of things. No accident that here we have the Map Maker of Destiny with this message of authentic purpose, inspiration, and free will, which I love this. I like the fact that we can all be similar and we can all be different. What is it that we want to be? So let's get right to the message in this. We can all be similar and we can all be different, but what do we want to be? That's the question I believe is showing up everywhere. When I look out and around at different folks that have different messages, and in particularly, I'll speak specifically for myself. Many of you know that tune in. I've taken myself on this little journey, if you will, of spiritual connection. When in the early part of 2020, the world decided that we needed to stay home and not go out and spread germs. Okay. Now we're approaching 2022 and I'm looking at that story, not making it mean anything, just looking at the story and how it played out. Yeah, well, we've all been out there in the world and we've all been spreading our germs here, there, and everywhere. And, this is not the first time we've had sort of a major medical issue going on. Yes, of course, it was labeled by whoever as being somewhat catastrophic. And I am not making light of anyone whose life has been completely altered by either suffering from it, coming in contact with it, and I'm certainly not going to politicize any of it. But I don't know that you can be a human or intelligent human or someone who is working with all of this and not be somehow affected by it. So how interesting is this, that the Map Maker of Destiny and the brilliant message that should show up, along with my desire to seek, look for, and witness both authenticity and whatever the opposite of it is. Throughout my own life, there has been this weaving of being my true self, which is normally when I am happiest, normally when I'm the most joyful, normally when I'm doing what they've said, dance like nobody's watching, sing out loud, put the windows down in the car and scream whatever favorite song you've got going on. And I do that all the time. That is authenticity. When the ego's involved, when the filters come along, when you put the masks up, when you wear the outfits, when you buy the clothes, when you portray yourself as something other than that, it is inauthentic, somewhat shallow. It usually happens to me when I'm really not comfortable being myself. And there comes the rub. There comes the piece that I am like, oh, yes, I spoke about it a few videos ago about the shadow self and the shadow work and the work of the ego. And yesterday I dug into some of the bonus tracks that came with the Hay House certified card reading course. There's quite a number of them, different masterclasses, if you will, from various spiritual authors, card deck creators, people like Denise Lynn, Colette Baron Reed, Abiola Abrams, Crystal Banner, Kyle Gray, Radley Valentine, and others. There were so many of them that before taking that course, I didn't know who they were. The truth really is, every single one of us is a spark or an extension of whatever you believe the divine is, this bigger level of consciousness, this bigger piece of the universe, if you will. Everything that's been created by an energy source that's all perfectly lined up. Anything and everything that works, the ecosystem works, the trees work, and yet man, humans, which is an extension of this divine, greater, bigger consciousness, the human part, the extension of it, has the ability to be both creative and destructive. We have the ability to create amazing things, to move the universe forward, to move mankind forward, to work with each other on projects that help elevate and increase what happens next, to consider in our ancestral lineage, if you will, like grandparents, parents, all of those that are part of our bigger plan, our genealogy. We have the ability to continue the work that they did, that they were working on, and take it even further. My own personal belief is that's what we're here to do. That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to forget about whether we are categorized in a racial box, a sexual preference box, a gender box, any of that stuff. Throughout my life, I've noticed this lovely, authentic blending of all of those things. The blending of races, the blending of folks who at one point, this sexual revolution that happened. When I was a little boy in the 60s, to be gay was considered homosexual. It was a bit like a clinical label that people put on it. And many times it was considered a mental health issue. We, and I'll include myself in being openly gay, homosexual, whatever you want to call it, we were considered, mentally crazy. That this was something that was wrong, that was off. And thank goodness for the scientists that realized, it's chromosomal. They studied it and figured out that, this group of people are wired that way, this group of people are wired that way. We also had at the same time this race issue that if you were a person of color, you were not supposed to mix with someone who was considered Caucasian. There was that going on, and more and more and more and more. Well, in my own reflection of it, I'm looking at saying, well, my goodness, if you didn't want people to be global, didn't want people traveling to different countries and experiencing different things and having all these different things to do, then why in the world did you create airplanes? Really, put it up in the air. Why? And before airplanes, you put ships across the ocean and people traveled to different islands, to different places. They went and they explored places. So my bigger point of that is this map maker of destiny, without putting fate in the pathway of human beings, people who are being human. The spiritual world is stepping into this human world and saying we've got to kind of move our consciousness forward. We've got to move mankind forward without putting the fated people together, the mixture of people, the differences, the experiences. Without doing that, I don't know where we would have gotten to. I don't know how we would have evolved. I don't know how they would have decided that it was time to put satellites up in space and basically spy on people. I find that rather hysterical. I mean, at first it was a bit of an intrusion of my personal space when these little wearable devices would pop up and say, I didn't quite get that, or You happen to be maybe doing some shopping on the internet, and all of a sudden here comes an inbox saying, here you go, there's 30% off whatever it was you were looking at just now. I find that fascinating. Now, there was a time when I thought, this is a bit rude. I mean, I want to have my own private space. Nothing's really private. Nothing's really out of bounds. Nothing's really off limits. What the challenge is is if you're comfortable with it. Like, for example, we can't really control what people see and don't see, what they know, what they don't know, where they go and where they don't go. I mean, it's out there. We create technology, and technology does good things and not so good things. It is how comfortable are we with who we are. It's quite interesting that when you go look at reviews, there was a time where you wanted to get a review from somebody who said the product or the person or the service or whatever it is you were going toward is fantastic. And then we're now this world of, we want to look at, and I'll include myself in it, we want to be nosy and see what nastiness people are saying. What's the negative reviews? And bigger picture, I look at, how did folks get to the point where I'm going to choose to look at anything that's not good? I'm going to choose to look at things that they're saying nasty things. I want to watch that drama. And let's face it, we are 20 years into what I consider to be reality television. People, that's cheap entertainment. Cheap. People are taking cheap shots. The individuals that are involved in those shows, not the people in front of the camera, but the people behind it, they are capitalizing on manipulating. In my opinion, it's just my opinion, and I'm not saying this is what, but I've watched it and I've listened to how folks have said this is really not what happened. You hear of the celebrity consciousness where somebody will say that they were coming out of a restaurant with someone, and this news feed frenzy will say they must be in a relationship. No, they just happen to come out of a restaurant together. Doesn't mean they're dating. These are the things I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm moving past what the point is. The point of authenticity, the point of being comfortable with who you are, requires you to get deep and requires you to look at where your fated life, or the fate that you had, the people you bump into, the places you've gone to, the experiences that you've had, those automatic random things that happened, where you are able to turn them into destiny, where you're able to make them your destined pathway forward. Now, it gets a bit confusing because how do you know what that is? The human experience, or what we have been programmed to believe, is we're supposed to follow this life course. But whose life course are we following? We grow up, we're shown images that at this age you go to school. The idea is to get these grades. The idea is to be scholarly. The idea is to be successful. The idea is to be brilliant. The idea is to be. And then there's a little word that's not added. Than what? Than who? And there are a few folks who don't necessarily follow that way of thinking or that way of being. A little bit like the rebel. So if I look at my own life, here I am, a young man, intelligent, curious. I remember being a child. Why? I wanted to know. My brilliant mother would say, if you want to know, you need to go ask, because I don't know. And this would continue. I go to school, hated it. Did not like grade school whatsoever. Sitting in a desk, at a chair, watching someone write rubbish on a blackboard was not my idea of anything. Most definitely creative. Most definitely curious. Most definitely chatty Kevin. I wanted to know all of things. I wanted to know what was going on and who was doing what. well, no accident that as a young man, the beauty shop, the salon, people underneath the hairdryers getting their hair washed and done fascinated me. Well, that became the destiny. That became something that I believe I was meant to do. And then I discover as a young man that my grandfather's grandfather was a salon owner in Stratford-on-Avon, of all places. He made wigs and did things for these people doing Shakespeare plays. Um, then I decided to go seek the world. I applied for a job, um, and I was accepted. And then 3 years later, when it was okay to go do what I was doing, it happened, it came around. These, I believe, were fated. These, I believe, came along and gave me the choice of moving forward. The whole point of this message today is consider, I'm not telling you that you have to be, but consider that your life, your journey, what you're doing right now, you've got fated opportunities, things that pop into your pathway, books, people, situations, places, stories that come along that give you the opportunity to turn the fate, that idea, that person, that conversation, that book, that movie, whatever inspired you, fated you to turn it into a destiny. I got goosebumps, so now I know there's angels everywhere. That inspires you to turn it into destiny. The point I'm making about how do you know what that is and when that shows up, it is something that grabs a hold of you, all over you, and gives you what we would normally call the EBGBs, the piece of, oh, yes, that's it. That's what I need to do. That's what I need to follow. And yes, at the same time, there's this little bit of a battle with the shadow self. You know, we have a spiritual self, part that's also connected to the divine, part that's also connected to a higher purpose. And we have the physical self, the piece of us that's in here, doing this, wandering around, having these experiences. It's all part of a bigger piece, a larger piece, an expanded piece. I believe, I don't expect you to, that before we came and signed up and ticked the box to become who we are, we wanted some of these experiences. And I also believe that the reason why folks, especially in the Western world, are obsessed with their ancestry, you know, this company somewhere that says you need to spit into something and send it off somewhere, and next thing you know, they tend to send you who you were connected to. Oh, that's brilliant. Brilliant, because those folks in your destiny path, grandparents, great grandparents, blah, 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 all of that stuff that we have been unearthing for 25, 30, maybe even longer, the family tree, that's those ancestors that are saying, excuse me, hello, you got some work to do. You came down here to complete some stuff. We're here to keep that going, to keep that moving, to keep that trolling along. So then you get to the point where, well, what is the point of all this? Because we have to have evolution. I've spent the time, instead of watching a news cycle, and yes, I'm sort of like, well, I've only got so many hours in the day, I need to do something productive. And I'm sorry that there have been disasters, truly, and things that have happened that have altered the course and the destiny of the folks that were involved. That's heartful and hurtful. But then there's also this, what can be done to move this all forward? What can we do? Now, it isn't about being the great pioneer. It isn't about being the great discoverer. It isn't about being the next, I don't know, Steve Jobs. Those folks who came to do that, the ones who moved technology forward, those individuals, those pioneers, there's one person that did it. They're seen once they've become somebody. They're shown once they've reached it. They are revered, or whatever you want to call it, once they've made it. Very few ever speak of how long it took them or what they needed to do. Yes, there have been biopics of Steve Jobs, several of them. Many of them get looked at after they've passed into spirit world to show what their journey was like, how they started, where they got going. Once they've made it, that's it, they've made it. That's one person. And what I find interesting about today's world is we're in this world that the idea is we have to be one of those people. We have to be seen. We have to be looked at. We've got to be shown. We've got to have this big audience. We've got to have this big following. Because if we don't, we're not considered anything or anyone. I've been guilty of that. I've listened to folks who are entertainers, actors. They've wanted agents. They've wanted to be in front of the public eye. And for everyone that makes it, that becomes, has their name in lights, has got a TV contract, whatever that is, whatever that looks like, several others, hundreds, thousands of others don't make it. If you look at any of the talent shows that get put on the TV in the summer, how many thousands of young aspiring artists show up and do their thing and don't make it, not even given the time of day, don't even get shown on TV. And then you go even further, and there are the ones that get to the top 10, the ones that even win. How many of you know and remember the person who won one of those talent shows 4 or 5 years ago? Where are they? What are they doing? Is that it? Is the whole life about getting to that point? No. So how do you find out what your authentic destiny is, what you're fated to do? It is, what can you do right now? What can you do at this point? What is it that lights you up? What is it that talks to you? What is it that speaks to you? Even if it means journaling that part of, wow, I like this. I like it when this happens. I've noticed when this unusual thing happened, this went on. When that happened, that went on. You can look at what it is that you're destined to do and where fate has worked its way into your map of life and go after that. That's a lot to say about being completely contented with what's happening. In a nutshell, we cannot change the course that the entire planet is going on, the galaxy is going on. If we look at you and I, we are but a grain of sand in the Sahara Desert. That's how in relationship that we are, but we are also related to every other grain of sand in that same desert. We're actually components of the desert that creates it all. So wouldn't it be better to say, oh, I'm moving into this area with these folks to create this big project? And I think that's where we're all headed. Right now, we're in this big sifting and sorting office. We're watching how structure of companies, corporations, the supply chains, the financial, the educational, the medical, the governmental, all of these big, huge systems are all going through a shift. They're all shaking around and changing. Things are not how they have been forever. This is where this little piece of the puzzle, your authentic self, your independent, authentic, individual grain of sand, if you will, component, gets to connect. But it doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen immediately. You can't really say, well, if you're looking for fame, to be seen, to have everybody go, yes, that's brilliant, to have 5 million people tweeting, twittering, following, whatever they do, if that's your thing, that you want to be the brightest grain of sand in the desert, well, okay, that's your thing. I'm not sure that that's the destiny. I'm not sure that that's the pathway forward. the work involved to get to that point is a lot more effort than the work involved to work together as a group of people, moving everything forward for the highest good, for the greatest good of not just this generation that's here now, but the ones behind us and the ones behind those. And I think I landed on the map maker of destiny and clued into the fact that I'm not a parent of a human being. I know parents of human beings, and I think about their children, and then I think, oh, that child is going to be a parent, is going to be a grandparent, probably long after I've gone up into spirit, popped back out and done it some again. That's the other part. I went, whoa, hang on, wait a minute. How many times have I done this? How many times have I gone to spirit, non-physical, and said, yep, I got to go complete that pathway and that destiny. I got to go back and do that cycle. I got to go back and do that cycle. I'm just saying, this is my process. I don't know what yours is. Let's get to Melody Beatty's book, because I feel like I've just rambled on and I need to pull it in. All right. We are at the 14th. No, we're not. We're at the 13th of December. Learn to live with ambiguity. What's the word? Ambiguity. You know, I'm saying this word ambiguity. I really don't know what that means. Sometimes the picture isn't finished yet. Oh, well, there we go. Ideas, possibilities, hopes, dreams float around, circling us like asteroids around the planet. We may think our events, our lives are happening aimlessly, without purpose. All we see are disconnected floating blobs. We reach for them, try to grab them with our hands so that we can connect with them, force them into a whole force them into a whole, force them into a picture we can see, something that will make sense. Let the pieces be, let yourself be, let life be. Sometimes chaos needs to precede order. Ooh. The pieces will come together in a piece that makes sense, in a beautiful work of art that pleases. You don't have to force the pieces to fit together. It's not time. You don't have to know how. There is a power sometimes in not knowing. There is a power in letting go. There's a power waiting. Power in stillness, power in trust. The power is letting the disconnected pieces be until they settle into the whole piece. The action you are taking will appear timely, clearly. What you're doing will become clear. Let the pieces be, and they'll take shape. Soon you'll see the picture. Okay, so I love that. And I love that it fits with the map maker of destiny. And thank you, angels, archangels, ancestors, for being all around here and pushing that mess through my mouth so people can get it. There's something I've got to say here. Deliberate creation. Deliberate creation. There is nothing that you're doing, saying, being part of that isn't deliberate, that wasn't on purpose, that isn't happening the way it's meant to happen. What I would suggest, not tell you, what I would suggest is get your journal out. Find 2 pieces of the page. Really, that's it. What lights you up, what doesn't light you up. And keep going down the list of lighting you up. Notice when what lights you up, you can cross it out and say, that doesn't light me up anymore. What doesn't light you up will lead to what does light you up. What you don't like, you can't stand. The people that aren't serving your purpose. The job that isn't serving your purpose. The way things are going that isn't serving your purpose. That's not lighting you up. This is where fate and destiny come along. The bigger piece of the picture is, know that you are far more powerful because you've got access to something bigger than this physical body. Far more powerful. That's the part you get in touch with. All right, my friends, until next time, lots of love. Happy mapping. Bye.